Good morning, members, and welcome to the 15th day of session, February the 26th, 2026, 68th Wyoming Legislature Budget Session. As you guys get assembled in here, we'll try to keep it down, and I'll let our good chief clerk take the roll. Please do.
Allemand, Andrew, Angelos, Banks, Bear, Brady, Bratton, Brown Gary, Brown Landon, Byron, Campbell Elisa, Campbell Kevin, Chestick, Clouston, Connolly, Davis, Erickson, Filer, Fornstrom, Geringer, Guggenmoss, Haroldson, Harshman, Heiner, Heft, Jarvis, Johnson,
Representative Johnson. Which one? Excused. Oh, I'm sorry.
Kelly, excused. Knapp, Larson Lloyd, Larson JT, Lawley, Lean, Locke,
Excused.
Lucas, McCann, Nicholas,
Excused.
Ottman,
Excused.
Pendergraft, Posey, Provenza, Riggins, Rodriguez Williams, Schmid, Sherwood, Singh, Smith, Storer, Strock, Stivar, Tarver, Thayer, Washut, Wasserberger, Weber, Wharf, Williams, Winter, Wiley, Yin, Mr. Speaker. Storer, Provenza, Bratton, Geringer, Johnson, Banks, Fornstrom,
We've got a committee out here yet, so we will hold that roll open for a few moments. Next, ladies and gentlemen, our prayer of the day will be led by Reverend John Hill, President of the Wyoming District of the Lutheran Church, Missouri Synod, Casper, Wyoming. So please rise and please, Pastor, lead us to prayer.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for the honor of serving you all today. Let us pray. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Merciful Father in heaven, you hold in your hand all the power and wisdom of man. You have instituted government among the nations of the earth for the punishment of evildoers and for the praise of those who do what is good and right. From you come all governing authority on the earth. Bless the United States of America and the state of Wyoming, and defend us from every moral evil and every assault from our enemies. We humbly ask you to give health and prosperity to all your servants in authority, President Donald Trump, Governor Mark Gordon, this legislative body, and all our judges and magistrates at every level of government. May they exercise the rule of law according to your commandment for the maintenance of justice and for the hindrance and punishment of wickedness, that we may lead a quiet and peaceable life in all godliness and honesty. Enlighten and defend them according to your divine wisdom and justice. Give them wisdom and understanding that they may promote peace and well-being among all our citizens, and that all true religion may flourish among us. Protect and prolong their lives, that your people may live in a just and peaceful land to your praise and glory. Defend and uphold your gifts of marriage and home, of children and education in our schools, of agriculture and business and all useful arts. Give to our people an increase of virtue in every walk of life. Give your divine help and comfort to the lonely and bereaved, especially to Pam Thayer, to all those who are sick, to those who are afflicted in mind, body, or soul. Defend and protect the innocent and all those who cannot speak for themselves. We give you all honor and thanksgiving for your mercies to us of body and soul. We bring these petitions to you, asking that you receive and answer them favorably for the sake of Jesus Christ, your Son, our Lord, who lives and reigns with you and the Holy Spirit, ever one God, world without end. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend. Members and guests, please join me in the salute. Most of the rest of our members are in here today, so if you want to go ahead and finish, maybe we can close the roll.
Locke. Davis. Nicholas. Ottman. Schmid. Strock. Winter. Winter.
Close the-
59 present, 3 excused, Mr. Speaker.
All right, thank you, Chief Clerk. The Journal Committee report, please.
Your Journal Committee reports to the Journal of February 25th, 2026 has been read and recommends that it be approved. Representatives Jarvis and Posey.
Thank you, Reading Clerk. Doctor of the Day is Dr. McAlpin, and the Nurse of the Day is Alicia Lepard. They are in the back, I would imagine, or somewhere thereabouts. They're available for us if anybody is feeling a little bit under the weather. Representative Erickson is going to be gone today. He's not feeling well and let me know this morning, so keep him in your thoughts and prayers as well. As he makes a speedy and full recovery, I trust. And so everybody else, I will continue to admonish all of you. Take care of yourselves. Drink a lot of fluid. I don't know if you need necessarily as much as we're trying to force into good Representative Banks, but stay hydrated. And so with that in mind, Representative Lawley, you have something for us, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good morning. I would like a privilege of the floor.
Good morning, Representative, and you certainly may. Please proceed.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. You know, ladies and gentlemen, we all have heroes in our communities. And in fact, it is those heroes and their service to their communities that makes Wyoming strong. That's what makes them strong. That's what makes us Wyoming. And today we have a rare opportunity, I believe, to give homage to a local hero from my district. And we do so first by acknowledging that the Speaker of our House and the President of the body across the hall have signed a proclamation acknowledging the great service of this individual. And so I want you to recognize with me up in the West Gallery, you will see Brent Godfrey. And we want to express appreciation for his 50 years of service to the public safety through his tenure in the fire service. Mr. Godfrey began his fire service career with the Manderson Volunteer Fire Department in 1976. During this time, he worked to establish the Bighorn County Fire District 3. He was appointed as the Bighorn County Deputy Fire Warden in 1987 and also served with the Basin Volunteer Fire Department. In 1993, he became the Bighorn County Fire Warden and continues his career by serving as Assistant Fire Chief of the Basin Volunteer Fire Department since 1996. Additionally, he served as an emergency medical technician for 34 years and a deputy sheriff for 32 years. Deputy sheriff for 32 years. Again, truly a remarkable career that is worth celebrating. This is what makes Wyoming strong. Will you acknowledge Brent Godfrey?
Welcome, Mr. Godfrey. It was an honor to be able to sign that proclamation for your service, sir. And thank you for your service to Wyoming and its people. Look forward to your continued involvement. I'm sure you're not the type of person that's just going to not be engaged. I can tell that from your already experience in this state. So I look forward to your influence continuing in our state and helping take care of its people. Thank you. And thank you for your service, sir. Thank you. Okay, let's see. We've got Representative, I'll take Representative Singh and then we'll try to, or do we want to take you first and then end on a high note? I don't know. Do you want, okay, Representative Singh.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I hope everyone did their vocal exercises this morning because today is a special day. We've talked about heroes and neighbors, and so it is Representative Chairman Landon Brown's birthday today. And so if we can all just go ahead and sing a lovely tune for him, that'd be great. Thank you.
Congratulations and
There's a whole bunch of coyotes outside. the
I was
backside
gonna
of this.
say-
I don't know what's going on.
I saw 3 guys in camo show up with guns a minute ago. I thought maybe they were finding something. So just look to the west here and you can see they're thinking there's an opportunity right now. So, all right. Well, happy birthday, Representative Brown. Okay, Representative Filer, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Quick privilege.
Absolutely.
All right, folks. I did not write this joke. This came from somebody else. If you boo, I won't tell you who it was. Okay. Did you hear about the man who was afraid of escalators? Well, he took steps to avoid them. That came from Chair Bear, by the way.
Thank you, Representative Filer. Thank you, Representative Bear, for encouraging him. All right. One announcement I need to make to all of you tomorrow is the deadline for interim topic submissions. So please make sure and submit your proposed topics using the form on the website no later than noon tomorrow. And so please be reminded that you need to get your interim topics in so that we can go through those and hopefully get those in the mill so people can have those discussions and look over those different subjects. Noon tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen. Next thing, we have a special event, but I think they're probably still down in the Senate. So we'll do the rolled acts next. So, all right. Next on our agenda is enrolled acts. We are at that order of business of signing of enrolled acts. First enrolled act for our consideration, enrolled act number 2.
Senate Enrolled Act Number 2, being original Senate File 18, an act relating to enrollment of students in K through 12 public schools, specifying the public schools of the state as being equally free and accessible to children attending school on a part-time basis, specifying applicability and providing for an effective date, being enacted by the Legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I am about to sign enrolled act number 2, having first been Senate file number 18. I have so signed. Next enrolled act for our consideration is enrolled act number 3.
Senate Enrolled Act Number 3, being original Senate File 31, An act relating to mortgages, implementing the Uniform Mortgage Modification Act, specifying the priority of mortgages, specifying applicability, and providing for an effective date, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I am about to sign Senate Enrolled Act number 3, having been original Senate file number 31. I have so signed. Next Enrolled Act for consideration, Senate Enrolled Act number 4.
Senate Enrolled Act number 4, being original Senate File 47, an act relating to increasing the Hathaway Scholarship Program awards, making conforming amendments, and providing for an effective date, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I am about to sign Enrolled Act number 4, having been original Senate file 47. I have so signed. Next Enrolled Act number 5.
Senate Enrolled Act number 5, being original Senate File 30, an act relating to elections, clarifying the definition of qualified elector, making conforming changes related to voter registration and voter qualifications, and providing for an effective date, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I'm about to sign Enrolled Act number 5, having been original Senate file number 30. I have so signed. Next Enrolled Act number 6.
Senate Enrolled Act number 6, being original Senate File 24, an act relating to the Wyoming Lottery, authorizing debit card payments for lottery ticket purchases, and providing for an effective date, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I'm about to sign Enrolled Act number 6, having been original Senate file 24. I have so signed. Next Enrolled Act number 7.
Senate Enrolled Act number 7, being original Senate File 11, an act relating to Defense Forces and Affairs, amending eligibility requirements for indigent veterans in order for counties to request reimbursement for preparing and transporting indigent veterans for burial, specifying indigent veterans who qualify for burial expenses paid by the Department of Family Services also qualify for payment of burial expenses by counties, increasing the amount paid for burial expenses by the Department of Family Services, clarifying priority of payment for burial expenses of the indigent veterans, making a conforming amendment, and providing for an effective date, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I am about to sign Senate Enrolled Act number 7, having been original Senate file number 11. I have so signed. Next Enrolled Act number 8.
Senate Enrolled Act number 8, being original Senate File 8, an act relating to crimes and offenses, creating the criminal offense of absconding for criminal purposes, specifying penalties, and providing for an effective date, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I'm about to sign Senate Enrolled Act number 8, having been original Senate file number 8. I have so signed. Next Enrolled Act number 9.
Senate Enrolled Act number 9, being original Senate File 7, an act relating to crimes and offenses, amending the penalties for theft and related offenses as specified, amending the number of theft offenses needed for a felony theft offense, and providing for an effective date, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I am about to sign Senate Enrolled Act number 9, having been original Senate file number 7. I have so signed. Next and last Enrolled Act for us today is Enrolled Act number 10.
Senate Enrolled Act number 10, being original Senate File 5, an act relating to counties, authorizing county memorial hospitals and hospital districts to file for bankruptcy under Chapter 9 of the United States Bankruptcy Code as specified, and providing for an effective date, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I'm about to sign Enrolled Act number 10, having been original Senate file 5. I have so signed. Thank you, reading clerk. Okay, ladies and gentlemen. All right, any messages from the Senate? None? All right, Senate files on first reading. Reading clerk.
Senate File 85, sponsored by Senator Nethercott.
First reading of the bill.
Raven Act.
Senate File 85 will be assigned to Committee number 2, Appropriations. Next Senate file for consideration, Senate File 92.
Senate File 92, sponsored by Senator Nethercott.
First reading of the bill.
Wyoming False Claims Act.
Senate File 92 will be assigned to Committee number 1, Judiciary. Next Senate File 72.
Senate File 72, sponsored by Senator Schuler.
Next, first reading of the bill.
Interstate Teacher Mobility Compact.
Senate File 72 will be assigned to Committee Number 4, Education. Next, Senate Joint Resolution Number 5 for consideration.
Senate Joint Resolution Number 5, sponsored by Senator Driscoll.
First reading of the bill.
Convention of States.
Senate Joint Resolution Number 5 will be assigned to Committee Number 4, Education. Next, Senate File for our consideration, Number 54.
Senate File 54, sponsored by Senator Rothfuss.
First reading of the bill.
State banks and SPDI conversions.
Senate File 54 will be assigned to Committee Number 9, Minerals. Next, Senate File 55.
Senate File 55, sponsored by Senator Rothfuss.
First reading of the bill.
Special Purpose Depository Institution Amendments.
Senate File 55 will also be assigned to Committee Number 9, Minerals. Next and last Senate File for our introduction today, Senate File Number 126.
Senate File 126, sponsored by Senator Anderson.
First reading of the bill.
Wyoming Ireland Trade Commission.
Senate File 126 be assigned to Committee Number 9, Minerals. All right. Reports from standing committees.
Senate File 56, sponsored by Senator Landon. Kratom Product Regulation, an act relating to food and drugs. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 1, Judiciary, to whom is referred Senate File 56, Kratom Product Regulation, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass with the following amendments. Ayes, Representatives Brady, Bratton, Chestick, Lean, Singh, Washit, Webb. Excused, Representative Filer and Representative Kelly. Representative Washit, Chairman. Senate File 14, sponsored by Education, Literacy Position for K through 3 Reading Program, an act relating to the authorization of a full-time literacy position for the Department of Education. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 4, Education, to whom is referred Senate File 14 engrossed, Literacy Position for K through 3 Reading Program, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass. Ayes, Representatives Andrew, Bratton, Erickson, Guggenmoss, Lawley, Singh, Strzok. Excused, Representative Kelly and Williams. Representative Andrew, Chairman. This bill was re-referred to Committee Number 2, Appropriations. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 2, Appropriations, to whom is referred Senate File 14 engrossed, Literacy Position for K through 3 Reading Program, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass. Ayes, Representatives Alaman, Angelos, Haroldson, Sherwood. Noes, Representatives Bear, Pendergraph, Smith. Representative Bear, Chairman.
All right. Thank you, Reading Clerk. Okay, I do believe we have our special guest here this morning, so they're going to bring her in. And we'll go. All right. Okay. All right. Fellow representatives, joining us to share some of her work is Wyoming's 9th Poet Laureate, Barbara Smith, who was appointed by Governor Gordon in 2023. Barbara taught for 38 years at Western Wyoming Community College, where she brought various visiting writers to the school's campus to meet and inspire students. She's an accomplished writer herself and published her first full-length poetry collection titled Putting a Name on It. Fellow representatives and guests, please help me welcome Ms. Smith to the House.
Hello? I feel like a rock star. Thank you for inviting me. A lot of times people ask, or people are mystified about what Wyoming is like and what Wyoming people are like. And I have a couple of thoughts about that. And I've written a few things in contrast to what people expect. And so I'd like to read them for you. This first one is called Facing the Elements. Oh, by the way, Elk Mountain, the wind was 75 miles an hour yesterday as I came here, so you need to appreciate me. Okay. And this actually came out of a brief incident that happened. It's called Facing the Elements. At the gas station one stormy day, a woman pulls up, cracks her window, screams, "How can you people live here? hundreds of miles of nothing. You could die out there. She rolls her window up tight. Used to the comfort of trees hugging the road, the buffeting wind unsettles her. This wide sky shows how small we really are. At home, as the snow falls and the wind whistles in tune with the kettle, I hear her frightened voice. You could die out there. When you live in the West, pay attention, listen. Earth, air, fire, and water are your constant companions. But so are sunrises, mockingbird mornings, when the curtains swell with sweet spring. Without the storms, the sago lilies would not bloom on the red desert. Spring unbidden in a place of their choosing. And the antelope would not run free, cutting before you on the road to the lake. The hot winds of summer remind you, savor this. It will change. You could die out there. Okay. Let's see if I can find the other one. This one is called A Different Kind of Green. You move here for the job, and the first thing you do is whine. But where are the trees? Where is the green grass? By that, you mean oak, pine, maple, Kentucky blue, a certain hue so green it hurts the eye in spring. Buddy, I have news for you. There is another side into the continental divide, and you're in it. There are no oak on the red desert, and a magnolia wouldn't last any longer than Blanche Dubois out on the Bitter Creek. Sometime late in the spring, on your way to work, pull over, walk the desert. The sage smells a different kind of green. Ice lives under the desert sands where small ones need water. The greasewood perks up. A sago lily unfurls her muted glory, unnoticed among the blue-green ground cover in her own kind of Easter. I taught for many years at Western Wyoming College in Rock Springs, and I had a number of exchange students, many of whom wondered where in the world they landed, you know. And this one, this poem starts with something one of them said to me one time. It's called Smiles. You Americans, the French girl said, you are always smiling. Too much smiling. Like the dog who rolls on his back, subservient. We smile at her, and she shakes her head. You can't help it, always smiling. Out west, on the gravel road, two pickups meet. The drivers raise two fingers from the wheel or tip their hats. Hello. That's a smile. With our masks on these days, we may miss the smiles. We greet one another now with a nod from afar. But as we tip our heads, our eyes say, we see you. We are still here, smiling. Thank you. Thank you.
We want to thank you, Barbara, for joining us here and sharing your words with us, and we appreciate you taking time to come and see us here in the Wyoming House. Enjoy the day, and thank you for sharing part of your day with us. Appreciate that. Okay, next for our consideration, we're going to be going, follow the script, it says. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, unless there's something else, we're going on to the bills in second reading. Get set up here. We are at that order of business bills on second reading. The first bill for consideration is Senate File 19. Reading clerk.
Senate File 19, sponsored by Senator Rothfuss. Epinephrine delivery methods, an act relating to public health and safety.
Senate File 19 having been read two separate times. The question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Next Senate file for consideration is Senate File 20.
Senate File 20, sponsored by Blockchain. Data privacy, government entities, an act relating to the administration of government.
We have amendments for Senate File 20. Representative Yin, please.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. I move second reading amendment number 1 to Senate File 20 and ask for your favorable consideration. So members, one of the folks that handles some of our data asked me to just make sure that in this bill, we allow any resident to ask for the kind of data that that agency has on them. And so in this amendment, I just put forth an ability and a requirement, frankly, to make sure that when we hand over someone's data, we are actually handing it over to the actual person that is truly requesting it. So someone can't try to impersonate this person and steal someone else's data from an agency through this bill. And so just putting that verification part in there and ask for your favorable consideration. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative, any members? Daniel Singh for your first time, Representative.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm on and for this amendment, folks. This is a very thoughtful amendment, and the bringer talked to both the chairman in this chamber and the body across, and so I think this is a step forward to make it a better bill. So thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Any other members for your first time on the amendment? Ladies and gentlemen, seeing none, second time? None. Back to the bringer. Representative Yin, please, sir. Question being called. All those in favor of third reading amendment number 1 to second reading. I'm sorry. I'm looking at thirds as I'm sticking them in my notebook. Second reading amendment number 1 to Senate file number 20. Let me see. I got a lot of cool things going on up here. Don't want to misstep here. I move it. Senate file, number 20, say aye. All those opposed, no. Okay, amendment has been adopted. Seeing no further amendments, Senate file number 20 having been read two separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Next Senate file for our consideration, Senate file 22.
Senate File 22, sponsored by Blockchain. Unincorporated Nonprofit Associations Amendments, an act relating to corporations, partnerships, and associations.
Senate file 22 having been read two separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Next Senate file for consideration, Senate file 27.
Senate File 27, sponsored by Senator Landon. Leashed dogs for tracking black bear, an act relating to game and fish.
Senate file 27 having been read two separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Next Senate file for consideration, Senate file 48.
Senate File 48, sponsored by Senator Barlow. Stem Cell Freedom Act, an act relating to public health and safety.
Senate file 48 having been read two separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Next Senate file for consideration, Senate file 71.
Senate File 71, sponsored by Senator Olson. Wyoming Department of Homeland Security, an act relating to the administration of the government.
Senate file 71 having been read two separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection from the body, it is so ordered. Next Senate file for consideration, Senate file 88.
Senate File 88, sponsored by Senator Salazar. Sex offenders, residents near child care facilities, an act relating to crimes and offenses.
We have amendments. Representative Larson, Boyd.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to move second reading amendment number 1 to Senate File 88 and body have you consider this. As I look at this, as we studied this yesterday, it appears what we're trying to do is protect children from potentially bad situation to happen when there's a sex offender within 1,000 feet of the daycare center. And in the conversation yesterday, we placed that burden on the sex offender who is registered or has been living there. And it appeared to me, or at least it does appear to me, that if the intent of the bill really is the protection of the kids, then the daycare, the childcare facility should also bear some burden in due diligence as they determine where they're going to locate this care facility at. And so on page 2, at the end of the new language, we add location, that when a person applies for a child care facility license with the Department of Family Service, the person will determine whether the facility will be located within 1,000 feet of the sex offender's residence, and then it requires the department to verify the accuracy of that. So just trying to completely wrap around what I think the intent of this bill is. So there you have it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Lean, for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just a question for the bringer of the amendment. I don't see a procedure that happens with this amendment when they identify somebody that is within that 1,000 foot at that time. Should we also then be giving directive to who gets to remain in that location?
Thank you, Representative. Representative Washut, for your first time, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On and for the amendment. I think it makes logical sense that if the sex offender is already resident in that neighborhood where the daycare wants to open, that should be a factor that gets evaluated by the licensing authority.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Brown, your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And to the good representative from the center part of the state, I kind of had the same question, but I don't think that's really the intent of this amendment, is to actually go in and set forth a policy or procedure that actually happens. This is more of just a, hey, look, we want to put a daycare facility here, and we've done our due diligence to make sure that we're not going to, by the way that this law would implement, force somebody out of their house in that fashion. And then on top of that, the state agency that also regulates those is going to have to find out and verify we do or do not have a sex offender living within that 1,000 square foot area. I think that's probably the larger discussion at hand, in my opinion, is what does happen if there is something that is identified here. Does it mean that they can or cannot open a daycare in that area? Right? Or does that mean if they do open that, does that force then that person to move out of that 1,000 foot radius? I think those are bigger, larger discussions and policy discussions that we brought up during first reading and committee of the whole. And I think we have another amendment that's going to bring larger discussion on that as well. But I applaud the bringer of this amendment, because what this is doing is just saying, hey, look, there's 3 different types of people coming into this situation here, and we need to make sure that there's an onus on somebody who is entering into this process, that they've done their due diligence on this process as well.
Thank you, Representative. Any other members for the first time on the amendment? Seeing none. Second time? Anybody want another shot? Representative Lean, you good? All right, back to the bringer. Representative Larson, Lloyd.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I think the conversation that came with the good chairman and the good representative from the center part of the state on, okay, what happens if they do? I contemplated that a little bit and wondered how prescriptive we wanted to get. But I think the reason I want it verified is because then if you make a conscious decision to put that child care facility in an area where a registered sex offender lives, you also bear some of the burden that goes along with that. And I think this requirement would certainly at least give me pause if I was going to do that, to contemplate what my liability would be in the event that something unfortunate took place because I knowingly put that facility in an area where somebody was registered. Could we enhance that and make it more prescriptive? Certainly, but that's my rationale for not doing it in this amendment, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Representative. Members, you are voting on second reading amendment number 1 to Senate File 88. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, no. Amendment has been adopted. Next amendment for our consideration, second reading amendment number 2 to Senate File 88. Representative Chestick, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This amendment arises from the conversation we had yesterday on first reading.
We'll need to move the amendment.
I'm sorry. I'd like to move second reading Amendment number 2 to Senate File 88.
And away you go. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. This arises from our conversation yesterday where we talked about the grandfather clause, which is on page 2 of the bill, lines 11 through 13, which protect a person living in an area, and if the sex offender is living in a particular area and a child care facility then locates there, the child care facility does not evict the offender from their home. The other situation that was not covered by this, and which this amendment does now cover, is the situation where a person is living near a child care facility and then is convicted of a crime that requires registration as a sex offender. Does he automatically lose his home? And when I said yesterday, that's a policy decision that we need to make as to whether that forcing that person to move from their established home is additional penalty or not. That's a policy decision. And the more I thought about it, the more I recognize that any decision on that policy question that is made by the legislature is going to result in injustice one way or the other. We cannot make that policy decision ourselves because to make one choice, there's going to be situations where the offender is going to be forced from their home for no good reason. To make the other choice, there's going to be potential risk to children in the child care facility, and there's no way we can say in advance who's going to get hurt by any policy decision. Because every case is different. They're very fact-based. And it occurred to me then that the one person who can make that choice legitimately is the sentencing judge. When somebody is convicted of a crime, the sentencing judge will have a pre-sentence investigation done and will have a lot of information available to the judge to determine whether or not requiring the offender to leave their home and move somewhere else is necessary or not. So we're going to let the judge who knows each individual case make these decisions on a case-by-case basis. If it is appropriate to ask a sex offender to leave their home for the safety of the children at the child care facility, that's a decision the judge can make. But there are situations where that might not be necessary, and it's not, and therefore we're not going to impose an undue penalty on somebody who doesn't deserve the penalty. That's a classic sentencing kind of decision that a judge will have the information they need to make that decision appropriately. So all my amendment does is it requires the judge at sentencing to make a determination whether requiring this new offender to move is necessary to protect the safety of children in the nearby facility. That's my amendment.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Lean, for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just some additional information for folks as they consider this amendment. There's different risk levels when you're talking about different sex offenders, and the recidivism rates or the chance that they're going to have to reoffend in the first 5 years is 13%. As we continuously move out of that 5-year period, the rates increase to 18 to 24% over a 20-year period. That's a high reoffense rate. And so leaving it up to a judge to decide if this individual gets to stay in that home close to those children could feel like the child care facility is compromised. On the other hand, if you have a sex offender that is not up for child molestation, but has to do with another adult in that sex offense, the children may not be at risk. So I'm kind of conflicted on the amendment, just some additional information for you to have while you decide. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Lean. Representative Brown, for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, I literally have been battling with this bill since last night when we started talking about this, and for much of what the representative from the center part of the state just mentioned. This is an all-encompassing bill of any sexual misconduct that is punishable, and that puts them on the sex registry offender list. And so when I look at this, I actually started thinking about the constitutionality of what we're talking about here. And people I started having this discussion. I started thinking like, okay, follow me here for just a second. When we start talking about cruel and unusual punishment, we're not typically thinking about kicking people out of their homes. And so when I started thinking about this, I'm torn on this. I don't know that this amendment does everything that we're talking about, right? I think that there's some judicial discretion that we need to allow for this in certain circumstances like this. But where I really struggle with this is, what if we have a situation where it has nothing to do with children? They're 958 feet from a daycare, and they're convicted of a sexual crime. Does that automatically mean that the judge should have the capability of kicking them out of their house? Does that punishment fit the crime? And I think that's a question that we all should be able to, have to wrestle with, because in my mind, I don't know that you take somebody from their house that they've lived in for 20, 30, 40 years potentially, right? You just never know how long they're going to be in there. This could have a lasting impact. And so I think this amendment helps bridge that gap, but I don't know that it quite gets us there on the constitutionality of it. And when we pass laws here, I feel kind of bad for sometimes for those in the black robes that have to interpret what we're trying to do here, because when they're interpreting that law, they're now the ones that have to enforce that law on somebody who has done something like this, right? And so I don't know where I actually fall on this. I hope the good bringer can convince me 100% more, maybe at least 90% more, that I feel like this will help the bill. Because I do worry about the constitutionality of taking property from somebody convicted of a crime. If there's other areas in the law that we do something similar, right? We talk about the Fifth Amendment and going in and making sure that we don't have the ability to take property from an individual without due process. Well, this person's gone through due process. This person has been convicted of a crime. So at the end of the day, we're deciding with this amendment whether or not we feel comfortable as a body saying this portion of the punishment fits the crime of what they've done. And we may require a judge to tell this person they have to uproot their life potentially for 10, 20, 30 years, sell their home, and find something else. And I'm really struggling with that idea. But I also, I'm really conflicted on this, because I also feel the fact maybe this is part of the punishment, that when you're convicted of a sexual crime like this, maybe that's part of the deal. So I appreciate the discussion. I feel like this is a big glaring hole in this bill of what it is and what kind of policy we're going to set going forward. But appreciate the bringer of this moving forward, and I think it helps the bill, but I'm still not even convinced that it makes the bill palatable for those judges in black.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Pendergraft.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Actually, on and for the amendment. As a pastor, I've had to be involved in a number of situations. And some of the situations involved a threat to children. Many of them did not. And I think it's wise to have a judge take a look at that. And, I can think of a half dozen cases right off the top of my head where I would hate to see them get caught up and be forced out of their home and try to go somewhere else and try to figure out where they can fit in, especially in a smaller community. So I think this is a good idea. I like the amendment.
Thank you, Representative. Any other members for the first time on the amendment? Seeing no one. Oh, Representative Washington, please, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I too think this amendment makes the bill better. Just want to add that placing someone on the sex offender registry is not for punishment. Adding someone's name to the sex offender registry is for prevention, protection of society. It has been interpreted that it is not a cruel and unusual punishment, right? So it's about that preventative aspect rather than part of the punishment.
Thank you, Representative. Any other members for the first time? Representative Haroldson, for your first time, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And a statement and then a question. Thank you for having these conversations. Again, when we live in small communities, everything shifts and changes, right? Because we lose a lot of landscape. And so the one question I had, and this maybe is to the original bringer or the committee that talked about this. Is this edge of property? Or is this facility or dwelling, like, if it's edge of property, that also shifts and changes things, because it could be a deal where, I mean, we're just, again, in these small communities, they may own a piece that's 75 acres with a house on it that's a daycare, and that 75 acres runs along the entire side of our community. So again, I'm just wanting to make sure we don't have an unintended consequence as we walk through this. And so I'm seeing people running towards Mike, so maybe I just missed it in the reading, and that'd be on me. But do appreciate the conversation and the clarity in these amendments.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Yin, for your first time, sir.
So, Mr. Speaker, on the bill, it is reside within 1,000 feet of the property where a child care facility is located. So that is measured from the nearest point of the exterior wall of the registered offender's dwelling unit to the child care facility's property line. The amendment is about residents within 1,000 feet of the existing child care facility. It doesn't really put property, so maybe if we do adopt this, just maybe we revise this a little bit to make sure that we're consistent between those two portions. But would ask for your adoption right now on second reading. And that's one of the reasons we have 3 readings, members.
Any other representative for the first time on the amendment? Second reading amendment number 2 to Senate File 88. Any others? Representative McCann, sir, please, for your first time.
Mr. Speaker, first for a second, please.
Absolutely. First for a second, Representative. Any other members for their first time on the amendment? Seeing no others. Okay, on to second time on the amendment. Any members would like to speak? Seeing none. Okay, I guess back to the bringer. Representative Chestick, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In response to several of the questions, yes, the principal problem that we see here is that not all sex offenses are created equal. Some do not involve children, and therefore the risk to children of that type of offender is minimal. And those are the kinds of people who, if they are forced to leave their homes because of a one-size-fits-all rule that the bill as drafted creates, that creates injustice to those individuals. I do believe, in response to the good representative from the capital city here, that this amendment it's a big improvement. I think this version, with this amendment, the bill is far more likely to survive any kind of a constitutional challenge. Having a one-size-that-fits-all rule that forces people to move that's a deprivation of life, liberty, or property without due process. That really does not involve due process. But the conviction that forces you out of your home without any particularized discussion or thought about whether you are a risk or not. And I agree with the good chairman of committee number 1 that this is not a punishment, it is a safety measure. And that's what this bill, the amendment does. The amendment says asking the offender to move is necessary to protect children. That's the standard we're using, which is the protective side of this issue. It addresses the issue, and that would be having a judge look at that would be the due process that would be necessary to enforce that requirement to force the person to move. So I think this amendment makes the bill far more likely to survive any kind of constitutional strategy. It makes the bill better, and I urge and I vote.
Thank you, Representative. Members, you're voting on second reading amendment number 2 to Senate File 88. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, no. The amendment has been adopted. Okay, Senate File 88 having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Next Senate file for our consideration will be Senate File 119. Oh, Representative Larson Lloyd.
Mr. Speaker, may I have a privilege?
Yes, you certainly may, sir.
Thank you. So folks up in the North Gallery have a couple of my constituents. One you're very familiar with, Jessie Johnson. She's here today with her dad, who's very proud of his daughter. Sid, if you would stand up Sid has spent his entire life really sitting a horseback and has ranched. I've never seen Sid with a tie on. It looks pretty good. And, you know, the thing I love about this is a generation. Sid would not have come here electing to wear a tie, but is here out of the respect for this institution and for this state. And Sid, we recognize that and we thank you for expressing that and welcome you to the House.
Ms. Johnson, welcome to the House. Thank you for being here, sir. Glad to have you. Okay, next bill, or amendment, excuse me, for our consideration, to Senate File 119. Representative Harshman.
I'll have to read it in, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Oh, you got to, wait a second. I jumped a step here. Chief Reading Clerk, if you wouldn't mind, please read 119.
Senate File 119, sponsored by Senator Hicks. Strategic Investments and Projects Account Repeal 2, an act relating to public funds.
All right, now we have amendments. Representative Harshman, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd move, and this is second reading amendment, and it's number 1. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And members, why this amendment? If you would look a handout that just hit your desk, it's got 2 highlighted lines, should be in the top of your desk. Yeah, this is the fiscal note to this bill. And so if you look at the orange, that's the yearly amount that will not be guaranteed in this within our spending policy. And so that's really important on how we make profiles in the future, how we get up here and talk about what 2 years, 4 years, 6 years looks like. And then also, if you read really the whole purpose of the Perm Mill Trust Fund, it was to provide a reliable, stable source for these ongoing expenses. It's the number one thing. There's 3 reasons why they did it, and they're spelled out there, 3 reasons. So what this amendment does, and I guess members, you can see each year how that grows, right? It's going to keep growing and growing as the Perm Mill Trust Fund grows. So what this amendment does is bring back a paragraph that was repealed. So this paragraph, Romanet I, was repealed, and then it changes it, scratches out strategic investments, and puts in the LSRA. And I thought whether I should try to improve this bill or not, because I just think the way it is, it's not going to make it. I just don't think it's going to make it. So if the body really wants to get rid of the SIPA, it is too complicated and we can't understand it. Okay. But I don't think we want to do harm to today's people. And that's the bottom line. And we got to pay our bills. So thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd stand for any questions.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Bear, for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would urge a no vote here. And folks, we're doing good work by simplifying and eliminating one of these accounts here. But I briefly mentioned it yesterday that really the concern is that there's all of these tips and funds going into the SIPA account where you don't get to see it. By the time you show up here for session, it's already happened. We expect without the elimination of SIPA, if this bill were to fail, we would see $450 million or so end up in SIPA from earnings and capital gains by the end of this biennium. And you would not have seen any of that happen. And nor would you see it in the budget when it came time to appropriate those funds. We have simplified our efforts in JAC to spend the money out of the general fund so that you could see it coming and going as we spend things on these special projects like building projects. We're trying to simplify it so that you can be involved and you can make wise decisions. What this amendment does is it creates a guarantee that will, over time, if you look at your long-term forecast with this amendment, we go back to the status quo and we would end up draining our reserve accounts. which is where we're trying to get to 5X and 7X. We'll never get there if we do this. So I'd urge a no vote, but again, let's continue to work on simplifying and making this stuff transparent. We want to keep building our reserve accounts. The money's not disappearing. It's not going anywhere except for into the accounts that you can see. On and against.
Representative Filer, for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, what I heard was, and I was trying to write all this down, is of course, as these two appropriators and former appropriators, they know a lot about these accounts more than I do. But I did just hear that 450 million in capital gains and investment funds will tip before we even get in this building. But I do also understand that there's a certain spending policy off of it that we do be able, that way we can actually help project our budgets and give us that transparency on where we can and can't spend. I am not against $450 million going into savings if we have the spending policy that's there to make sure that we can maintain our state budgets and provide the services for our citizens. So yesterday I voted, against this or for this amendment. And I'm still against the bill because I still have yet to have anybody explain to me how we don't lose the money. If we want to be transparent, and I think we all want to be transparent. I'm sure we all campaigned on that. But if we want to be transparent, and this does eliminate an investment or capital gains funds of $200 and some million a year, what are we telling everybody? That's the transparency is that we're going to lose money from investments that we don't have to tax you for later. And we're also going to save that money for our future generations so we don't have to tax them later. Why would anybody be in favor of this bill? On and for the amendment.
Thank you. Representative Geringer, for your first time, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I guess I'm trying to boil this down for myself to wrap my brain around it. I guess first off, the budget is complicated already, and I don't think we can really get to the point of simplifying it so that just anybody could pick it up and say this is completely obvious and transparent. That's number one. And number two, to really boil it down, what I'm hearing is that we want transparency and simplification at the expense of revenues that we're generating off of this account. And to me, that doesn't make good fiscal sense. And if I'm incorrect, please correct me, but that's what I'm trying to understand here.
Any other members for their first time? Representative Larson, Lloyd, first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In one of the previous comments, it was suggested that we're trying to also make sure that we use these funds available so that we can fill the PMTF reserve account so that we can have more stable investment time. That reserve account will be full in July without any tips, just on capital gains that will be coming this year. That reserve account will be full. So just bear that in mind in going forward. I again struggle with the transparency thing. 5% comes across, 2.5% goes to LISRA. How many people know how much of the 5% is? Of your constituents know that. Is that a secret? No. How many of them understand this, that when you split that and 2.5% goes to general fund, 2.5% then comes the other direction? It's there. It's always been there. You have to look and understand it, but it's not a secret. It's not hidden. It's as transparent as anything else in our budget system. And our budget system may have some, I don't know. I just look at you and know that if I can understand how this works, I know you can. And I'm even more confident that our constituents can. They just need to take the time to read and understand the intent and what's behind that. So I think I support the amendment. And again, just I think that we would look back and regret doing this if we remove the SIPA.
Representative Brown, Landon, for your first time, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So 10 years ago, when I entered in my freshman year, I could not understand the amount of tips and buckets that this body had. But you know what I did? I went to my speaker, who actually created about 3/4 of those stinking tips and buckets. And I said, explain this to me. Help me understand what we're doing with this. And get me to a point where I can actually go back and do exactly what the good bear from the mountainous areas said. Go back to my constituents and explain to them what we're doing. And I actually got it. It took me 2 years. I'm not going to lie, ladies and gentlemen. It took me 2 full years to understand this much money tips here. Then when it fills up, it goes over here. And then when this happens, we have this. And let's make no mistake about it. This bill is going to pass. Okay? We're going to get this bill. It's going to pass out of here, and we're going to walk away. But I'd like everybody in here to make eye contact with me if you can actually go back and tell your constituents what we just did and why we did it. Ladies and gentlemen, I submit to you, this actually restricts the availability of us to do one-time funding of $260 million of one-time funding. This pulls that out of our ability and then creates it. Let's make no mistake about this. It creates an availability and profiles it for our chief executive to then fund out of. Right now, he does not have that authority. This is ours. This is a legislative account that we have said, one-time investments, strategic investments, generally speaking, goes for our CapCon bills. I totally respect, and I truthfully do, trying to make it more transparent because it is hard. It is really hard to understand how these flows work. But ladies and gentlemen, you got a book when you got introduced into this legislature, and it's called our data book. And that data book explains everything in absolute finite detail on how to look at how these buckets fill up and what they're used for. If you do not understand it, if you do not get it, ask somebody who does. The elimination of this account is a $260 million withdrawal from this legislative body's ability to keep money out of the executive branch's hands, and then it puts it strictly into these accounts that we are trying to fill up, which will already be filled up. This is a reduction in the amount of money for one-time spending that we have. I appreciate the appearance of trying to do more transparency and coming into one checkbook. I get it. At the expense of every time we want to do one-time expenditures, we're going to sit there and now blame we don't have the money in our general fund. Well, we would have had we not passed this. I appreciate it. In the name of transparency, it sounds good. But ladies and gentlemen, if you've been here through a tough time when we actually had to cut a budget, we actually had to drop $1 billion out of our budget, not just because we wanted to, but we had to, you'd understand it. This account is really, really an important piece to this legislative body's ability to fund one-time projects. So on and for the amendment, totally against the bill.
Representative Connolly, for your first time, ma'am, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm against this. And I consider myself somewhat simple person. And I'm trying real hard to comprehend and understand how supposedly this simplifies things, because in my mind, it just confuses things. So as a simple person, I think I am perfectly capable of explaining what's going on here right now to my constituents. And I don't think it's as simple and transparent as it might seem. So, yeah, I'm not.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Yin, for your first time, sir, please.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. So members, in our budget fiscal data book, and I believe you can, if you have a copy, you can share this with any of your constituents. We have a summary of profiled accounts. In that summary of profiled accounts, it talks about what's the general fund, what's the budget reserve account, what's the legislative stabilization reserve account, what is SIPA. So we have descriptions of all of these accounts, and frankly, would definitely urge you to read this, at least the very least, this summary page, so you know what all of our accounts are, so you know what we're doing with all of our accounts. So we burned that last year. The general fund is our primary checking account. We call it our checking account. I mean, all of us call it the checking account because that's the general funds. That's what we basically pay out most of our expenditures off of. Our LISRA is our primary intermediate savings account. So it sits in between our super savings that we don't touch and we just basically make monies off of. And then we have the SIPA, which is also a short-term savings account that both of these savings accounts make money. So they make money for us. If we get rid of the SIPA and say, we want only one of these savings accounts instead of both of them, without the amendment, we tip some of that money into the general fund to our checking account instead of the other savings account we have. So I believe the amendment from the bringer puts some of the money that we're putting straight into the general fund instead of SIPA into our other savings account. And so let's think about our own finances. So if I have my own finances, I'm making income. If I was doing paycheck to paycheck, I probably would put it all in my checking account because I don't have money to put into savings. But we don't live paycheck to paycheck in the state of Wyoming, thankfully. We have these savings accounts. So normally what I would do is if I had a paycheck, I would put it in my savings account, and then each month, so I can keep track of how much I'm spending, or each year so I can keep track of how much I'm spending, I can move some of that money from my savings account to my checking account. So I make sure that I know exactly how much I'm spending on my checking account, and when I'm not wasting resources by pulling extra money out of my savings account because I know money in my savings account or my money mutual or any other more liquid fund is going to make money for me instead of jamming it in my checking account where I know it's definitely not going to make money for me. So all the amendment is doing is taking, because the bill gets rid of one of our savings account, start putting some of that money in our other savings account so we don't waste money and we actually continue making money instead of burning money by leaving it in the checking account. And so with that, I'll ask for your favorable consideration of the amendment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Campbell, listen for your
you.
first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A couple of things I'm struggling with, and maybe it's just me. It seems we are taking simplification and transparency and making it the same thing. So in order for something to be transparent, it has to be simplified. And they're becoming interchangeable. I think everything from what was just covered in the data book, I mean, everything, there is transparency. It's all out there. Does it take some time to understand how all of it works? Yes. Does that mean it's not transparent? No. So I'm struggling with that because in our goal to simplify and be transparent, I think we're maybe doing a lot of damage. What I do think about, and this is why I'm very much in favor of this amendment and very much opposed to the bill. Personal story. My son is 27. When he was 22 years old, he graduates from the university over the hill, graduates, gets his first, adulting job. From the time he was 22, he has set up 5 different savings accounts. He has one for when he wants to buy a house. He has one for big purchases, cars, one for travel, one for, at 22, he's thinking about when I have kids and I want them to be able to go to school. And then one other one, I can't remember, it's like take mom on fun trips. No, that's probably not what it is. But since he was 22, he's been putting money into these 5 accounts for now 5 years, almost 6 years. I will tell you,
He has purchased probably 3 new vehicles and paid cash every time. He's getting ready to buy his first house and will have a significant amount of money to put down on it. Because at 22, instead of simplifying, I have 1 checking and 1 savings, he was thinking about his future and where he wants to be and started setting up different accounts for a very specific purpose. And that's what I look at our government. I mean, that's what the state government has done, has thought about our future and setting up very specific accounts for a very specific purpose. And now we're trying to undo all of that work and say, nope, you have a checking and a savings. And I get a little frustrated when people say state government needs to be as simple as our personal accounts or our business accounts. We're comparing apples to dragons. I mean, the scope of what the state government is responsible for. I mean, it's an entirely different accounting system. So is it more complicated? Yeah. Have we done a really good job of thinking about our future and where we want to be and setting up very specific accounts for a very specific reason? Yeah. So I would encourage us to be like my son and think about our future and what has the decisions made to help us be as strong as we are. We already have transparency, and maybe by simplifying, we're just doing more damage than good. So very much in favor of the amendment and very much opposed to the bill.
Representative Lean, for your first time, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just a little bit of history for the folks. When we're talking about our SIPA account, it's only been alive and active for 8 years. And when we're receiving the auto tip money that ended up there, when we very first started our adventure here in Cheyenne for this legislative session, the totality of that account was $228,600,000. And that was one of those auto tips, so the guaranteed spending policy that came from the PWM TRF reserve account, not the giant account, but the reserve account. And that reserve account has just been backing up the SIPA account for special project funding. All we're doing by putting in this repealer is adding some clarity to where that money is being housed and how many of these accounts are being used as checking accounts. Opposed to the amendment, in favor of the bill.
Any other members for your first time? First time on the amendment. Second time on the amendment? Second time? Representative Filer, second time on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thought somebody was going to jump up there before me, but I feel like it's like deja vu from last year when we decided to get rid of the bra account. And that was a $152.6 million transfer. This is public school math at my desk. But that was a $152.6 million transfer. When we did that, we lost $7.63 million in interest earned this past year. If you want to compound that by 10 years, if we add all that up, conservatively, that's $95.9 million to make a transfer that we did last year. So that's why I'm a little leery with this, because I don't want to have to go back and tell our constituents that we cost them $100 million in 10 years on one account over here. I'd rather be more transparent to say, yes, I understand it's hard to read because we're learning it too. A lot of us are learning how to read this budget. But I would like to go back and tell them that we are making money off of our money, so we don't have to tax you. And what we're doing, I feel like, is the same thing we did last year. So I think we really got to think about this, guys. I think we really do. I just don't, I know $95 million doesn't sound like a lot in the big scheme of things, but it's that's $95 million we're not taxing people for.
Any other members for their second go round on the amendment? I have available to Bear, Geringer, Larson Lloyd, Brown Landon, Yin, Connolly, and Campbell, and Lean. Any others? Seeing none, back to Representative Bear, second time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So want to address some of those comments. Appreciate the debate. This is good stuff, folks. This is how you learn about this stuff. Becomes interesting. I'm going to start with the good representative from this city here and the northwest portion of the county. And his comment was, well, are we getting rid of an opportunity to make better returns? Well, This amendment does exactly that. It gets rid of an opportunity to make better returns, because instead of leaving the money in the 5X to 7X account, which the good representative from the land of Durr said that, hey, we're going to finish filling it up to 7X here in possibly just a few months, this amendment would drain that account. So the answer is no, we're going to make better returns on investment by not passing this amendment. We need to leave the money in the account. When it finishes, it will tip into the corpus of our retirement account, if you will, the Permanent Mineral Trust Fund. So this is allowing, and we all kind of went along with this, several years ago when we decided we want to get a 5X to 7X account. And we want to really start building up our reserve accounts so that we've got some good investments, making good returns. We believe in our investment team. Let's give them a chance to do this with the money. So that's what this bill does, but the amendment defeats that by draining that account. Okay, so please vote no on the amendment. Vote aye on the bill. And there was other comments about confusion. There was a comment about it taking 2 years to learn how our finances work. That should never be the case, folks. It should be pretty clear how the money flows. It shouldn't be tipping this way and tipping that way. It should be pretty simple. You should be able to come in here within 6 months or so, learn what the accounts do, how they work, and then you should be able to go share that with your constituency. And your constituency should be able to look at it as well, and in a matter of moments, figure out where everything's going and why it's going there. So again, against the amendment, for the bill.
Representative Lean, for your second time, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to correct the date that I gave you. This account was, the SIPA account came about in 2013, looking at all the accounts and where they came from, just a correction on my part. But I also wanted to speak to one thing that this SIPA account does fund, and that is the prisons, 20 million a year, and that account has already been spoken for in the bill draft itself. And so on and opposed to the amendment and on and for the bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Yin, for your second time, sir.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. So thanks to the good representative on appropriations who sent us all an email. It's a public document, our budget and fiscal data book. Send it to your constituents, read it yourself. I agree, it shouldn't take you 2 years. Doesn't take 2 years. It's all in that data book. Read the data book, it's all there. And with actually nice diagrams too to show what goes into what. Again, you can be for getting rid of the SIPA. I think there are plenty of people who are for getting rid of that account. But if you get rid of that account, instead of just dumping it all into the checking account, put it back into your other savings account. I mean, that's how you should be managing your own personal finances. And so I think it's only responsible to do that for the state finances as well.
Thank you, Representative. Any other members for a second time? I still have Geringer, Larson, Lloyd, Brown, Landon, Connolly, and Campbell. None? All right, back to the bringer. Representative Harshman, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I couldn't print it out. I just had the electronic copy of the statute. I just took a picture of it, but 947119, the purpose of it is consistent, sustainable flow of earnings for expenditure over time, protection of the corpus of the permanent funds against inflation, and to the extent practicable, increase earnings available for expenditure to offset the effects of inflation. So that's our charge. Okay, now there's a lot of stuff said. I'm going to try to bring this back home to what we're talking about. You have the Permanent Mineral Trust Fund. It has what's called a spending policy amount. That's called the SPA, spending policy amount. And you'll remember that is 5% of the 5-year rolling average, which really is about 4% of the current market value. 5% of the current, so we don't spend all earnings. When we have earnings over 5%, those tip to the reserve account. And I think the good chair of appropriations said 5X, 7X. Actually, the law is 7X, 245%. And we filled that thing up. Most of the fill up came during COVID. When we had COVID funds, we were allowed to swap those for corrections and for the Department of Health. And instead of growing state government, we swapped those and saved them. And I know there were many of you running for the legislature, and I get it. I've run in a few campaigns, and a lot of times you run against the legislature. Oh, they're taking all that money away. Well, we actually used that money and filled up the reserve account instead of growing government. So we're going to tip. It's already at 7X. It's working like it's supposed to. And we increased the size of that reserve account so we could invest it for the highest rate of return instead of keeping it all in cash. Okay, that's just a little history, but really simple. You got the perm mill trust fund. Spending policy is 5%. That 5% is guaranteed by the reserve account for a year that we have 1%. So we don't have to shut down the Department of Health. So that's all that does. And most years we're over 5%. But I think as much as important as anything is on your goldenrod, when you look at these couple bienniums, oh, it's doom and gloom. And when you take away this $250 million a year and the projection, it's going to be doom and gloom. And so you're going to be, the people who sit here in the 69th, 70th, they're going to be operating off of fantasy land, doom and gloom. So here's what this bill does. Currently, then, we guarantee the full 5%. What this bill does is only guarantee 2.5%. So that's why you have this fiscal note of $250 million loss. Why in the world would we have a 7X account sitting there to guarantee 2.5%? This 5% is a good number. It used to be 10, 11% back in the day when we had high interest rates. We lowered it down. We've kept it at this 5% of the 5-year rolling average, which is 4%. So I'm trying to improve this bill. This bill will still get rid of the SIPA, and you'll have the general fund and the LSRA. That's it. But it guarantees the full 5%. So I think that's the key. And so we don't want to, and I guess if you don't support this, I don't know what you're going to tell the people that elected you to, hey, I cut our revenues by $250 million a year so we can cut services or raise taxes. Put that on your campaign flyer. I mean, that'll be, I don't know what else you could say, because it's not about simplicity. What we're talking about is 5% or 2.5% guarantee. And you can see the dollars. Now, Mr. Speaker and members, we talked about George Washington yesterday. There's a really cool thing outside the house. It's the George Washington tree. If you've never seen that, when you're outside walking around, it's the biggest tree out here. I think it was planted in the 30s. There's a little plaque out there. Daughters of the American Revolution. It's a sapling off of the elm tree that General Washington, when he took command of the Continental Army in Massachusetts.
Representative.
I know, but it's just so cool. I got to tell you, but it's out there. So go see that, and you can
On the
stand
amendment.
under that tree that General Washington did. So, yeah, this is really, this will be the only thing that'll save this bill. Because the chief executive, no chief executive in Wyoming history will let this bill go. Because they're looking out for the state, and we should do the same. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Please vote aye for consistency, for simplicity, and really for today's people. See, that's the deal with a trust fund. You got this balance between today's people and tomorrow's people. And I think we have a pretty nice balance. This shifts the balance to people that aren't even born yet. But we still have nursing homes to take care, to manage. We still have, you know, folks that need, and we still have highways to build and schools to build now. So I think we got the right balance. This is a bad bill. It will go down. And so let's try to make this bill a little better with this amendment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Representative. Okay, members, you're voting on second reading amendment number 1 to Senate File 119. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, no. The amendment has not been adopted. Okay. Just waiting, making sure. Senate File 119 having been read 2 separate times. The question is, shall the bill be read a 3rd time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. All right. Moving on to 3rd reading consent. Mr. Majority Floor Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move the third reading consent list consisting of the following Senate files: Senate File 9, Senate File 10, Senate File 17, Senate File 32, Senate File 41, Senate File 52, Senate File 53, Senate File 68, Senate File 79, Senate File 80, and Senate Joint Resolution 1.
Okay, any members have Representative Harshman? Okay. Representative Harshman, you have
Mr.
a
Speaker, if we could, would take Senate File 53 off that list. I've
53.
got a little amendment coming from
Okay.
the sponsor. Thank you.
Senate File 53 has been removed from the consent list. Any other members would like to remove a bill from the consent list? Okay, that's it. All right, very good. So we have Senate File 9, 10, 17, 32, 41, 52, 68, 79, 80, and Senate Joint Resolution number 1. Reading clerk, please, sir.
Senate File 9, sponsored by Judiciary, fentanyl to minors, enhanced penalty, an act relating to controlled substances, be it enacted by the Legislature of the State of Wyoming. Senate File 10, sponsored by Judiciary, contracts for holding and treating mentally ill detainees, an act relating to criminal procedure, being enacted by the Legislature of the State of Wyoming. Senate File 17, sponsored by Select Federal Natural Resource Management, Good Neighbor Authority Amendments, an act relating to state lands, being enacted by the Legislature of the State of Wyoming. Senate File 32, sponsored by Corporations, 911 funding, an act relating to emergency telephone service, being enacted by the Legislature of the State of Wyoming. Senate File 41, sponsored by Senator Olson, portable benefit accounts, an act relating to labor and employment, being enacted by the Legislature of the State of Wyoming. Senate File 52, sponsored by Select Natural Resource Funding, 2026 Large Project Funding, an act relating to the Wyoming Wildlife and Natural Resource Funding Act, being enacted by the Legislature of the State of Wyoming. Senate File 68, sponsored by Water Districts, Funds for Maintenance Projects, an act relating to irrigation projects, being enacted by the Legislature of the State of Wyoming. Senate File 79, sponsored by Revenue, Sales and Use Tax Reorganization, an act relating to sales and use tax, being enacted by the Legislature of the State of Wyoming. Senate File 80, sponsored by Revenue, Department of Revenue, Electronic Communication, an act relating to sales and use taxes, being enacted by the Legislature of the State of Wyoming. Senate Joint Resolution 1, sponsored by Select Federal Natural Resource Management, State Management, Federal Mineral Leases, a joint resolution requesting Congress to introduce a bill to enact law to amend the Federal Mineral Leasing Act to authorize the State of Wyoming to administer and manage mineral leasing on federal lands located in Wyoming, be enacted by the Legislature of the State of Wyoming.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we having been read 3 separate times, the question is, shall these bills pass the House? Chief Clerk, please call the roll. Whenever you're available. Okay. Just for your information, a little bit of a holdup here. Senate File 68 will be a 2/3 requirement. So just bear that in mind. Huh? Okay, so we're gonna have to take it off of consent. All right, so your consent list will be, for your information, 9, 10, 17, 32, 41, 52, 79, 80, and Senate Joint Resolution 1. 68 will be brought off and handled as a regular third reading. Chief Clerk, whenever you're ready.
Allemand, Andrew, Angelos, Banks, Bear, Brady, Bratton, Brown Gary, Brown Landon, Byron, Campbell Elisa, Campbell Kevin, Chestick, Clauston, Connolly, Davis, Erickson, excused, Filer, Fornstrom, Geringer, Guggenmoss, Haroldson, Harshman, Heiner, Heft, Jarvis, Johnson, Kelly, excused, Knapp, Larson Lloyd, Larson JT, Lawley, Lean, Locke, Lucas, excused, McCann, Nicholas, Ottman, Pendergraft, Posey, Provenza, Riggins, Rodriguez Williams, Schmid, Sherwood, Singh, Smith, Storer, Strock, Stivar, Tarver, Thayer, Washut, Wasserberger, Webb, Weber, Worf, Williams, Winter, Wiley, Yin. Mr. Speaker, Lucas, are there any changes? Are there any changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 60 aye, 2 excused. As for Senate File 9, are there any changes? Are there any changes? Provenza, aye to no. Further changes? Further changes. Yin, aye to no. Further changes? Further changes. Closing vote. Vote closed. 58 aye, 2 no, 2 excused. As for Senate File 10, are there any changes? Are there any changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 60 aye, 2 excused. As for Senate File 17, are there any changes? Smith, aye to no. Further changes? Further changes. Closing vote. Vote closed. 59 aye, 1 no, 2 excused. As for Senate File 32, are there any changes? Are there any changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 60 aye, 2 excused. As for Senate File 41, are there any changes? Are there any changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 60 aye, 2 excused. As for Senate File 52, are there any changes? Are there any changes? Singh, aye to no. Further changes? Further changes. Closing vote. Vote closed. 59 aye, 1 no, 2 excused. As for Senate File 79, are there any changes? Are there any changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 60 aye, 2 excused. As for Senate File 80, are there any changes? Are there any changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 60 aye, 2 excused. As for Senate Joint 1, are there any changes? Are there any changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 60 aye, 2 excused.
Good. All right. Having received the affirmative vote of the majority of the members elected to the House, Senate Files 9, 10, 17, 32, 41, 52, 79, 80, and Senate Joint Resolution Number 1 have passed the House. Okay, on to third reading, regular, Majority Floor Leader, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Absent objection pursuant to Rule 7-3, I'd like to lay back Senate File 53 for one day.
Any objection from the House? Rep- Okay, no objections? Okay. Senate File. Let me get back up there. Third reading. 53 has been laid back one day. Yes, absolutely. Representative Harshman, privilege, please proceed.
Okay, members, we have some special guests here today from Casper. You know, that's Natrona County, #1 on our license plates. Go ahead, say the rest of it. Okay, thank you. And #1 on our hearts. We have some fifth graders from Fort Casper Academy, one of the greatest schools in Wyoming. These fifth graders are the Chargers. They got on the bus today, came down. They got the best tour guide in America. They're getting a tour of our Capitol and the whole sense to watch us work. So we really appreciate you coming down. Have a great day and then run for office and take these seats someday. Go Chargers.
Welcome, Chargers, to the House. Thank you for being with us today. Enjoy it. Enjoy having the young people here to see what we're doing so you can be involved in this process. So, all right, we're on.
Mr. Speaker?
Mr. Speaker.
Yeah. Okay, we got Representative Williams, please.
Privilege.
Yes, please, by all means.
Neighbors, conservation districts are local units of government established under state law to carry out natural resource management programs at the local level. They work with landowners, counties, cities, towns to conserve our land and our water on private and public land. Please hold your applause as I recognize some of our conservation districts that are in the House with us today. Please hold that till the end. Cody Conservation District, represented by Corey Williams, Susie Downs and Stan Mitchum from Converse County Conservation District, Crook County Natural Resources District, Sarah Anderson and Justice Miller, Laramie County Conservation District, Chris Verselli and Kevin Wells, from Sublette County Conservation District, Megan Smith, Amber Robbins, and Mike Hinn, and from Weston County Natural Resource District, Caleb Carter. Holly Kennedy, Wyoming Association of Conservation District, is also with us today. Welcome to the House.
Thank you and welcome to the House. Glad to have you here. Glad to see two of my counties down here, Weston and Crook as well. Thank you for taking the time to come down and see us. Okay. ladies and
Mr.
gentlemen-
Speaker.
Yes, Representative Alaman.
Privilege of the floor, please, sir.
Please proceed.
Thank you. We have a prominent citizen from Casper, Natrona County today. Sitting in your north gallery with the great Jeanette Ward is Mr. Mikey Thorne.
Thank you, Representative Alaman. Welcome, Mr. Thorne, to the House. Glad you're here with us today. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are on third reading regular. First bill for our consideration, Senate File 6. Reading clerk.
Senate File 6, sponsored by Labor. Eligibility for Medicaid criteria, an act relating to medical assistance and services being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
We have amendments. Representative Campbell. This one, third reading regular. 6, it's on regular. Unless we just, it should have been on consent then. Okay, all right, well then they just pulled it off to discuss. All right, well then the third reading on Senate File number 6, Senate File number 6, having been read 3 separate times. It had to have been pulled off. There must have been some discussion. Otherwise, it would have been on consent. Just, okay. All right. Well, evidently this one escaped off of the third reading consent. No discussion and evidently no amendments. First amendment I saw would actually go to Senate File 45. So, all right. So having been read 3 separate times, question shall the bill pass? Chief Clerk, please call the roll.
Element, Andrew, Angelos, Banks, Bear, Brady, Bratton, Brown Gary, Brown Landon, Byron, Campbell Elisa, Campbell Kevin, Chestick, Clauston, Connolly, Davis, Erickson, excused, Filer, Fornstrom, Geringer, Guggenmass, Haroldson, Harshman, Heiner, Heft, Jarvis, Johnson, Kelly, excused, Knapp, Larson Lloyd, Larson JT, Lawley, Lean, Locke, Lucas, McCann, Nicholas, Ottman, Pendergraft, Posey, Provenza, Riggins, Rodriguez Williams, Schmid, Sherwood, Singh, Smith, Storer, Strock, Stivar, Tarver, Thayer, Washut, Wasserberger, Webb, Weber, Worf, Williams, Winter, Wiley, Yin. Mr. Speaker, are there any changes? Alamand, excused to aye. Chestick, aye to no. Further changes? Further changes? Closing vote? Vote closed. 55 aye, 5 no, 2 excused.
Senate File 6, having received the affirmative vote of the majority of the members of the House, Senate File number 6 has passed the House. Next Senate File for our consideration will be Senate File 45. We have amendments. Reading clerk.
Senate File 45, sponsored by Management Council. Local approval for simulcasting. An act relating to parimutuel wagering being enacted by the Legislature of the State of Wyoming.
Thank you, Reading Clerk. We are working off of a corrected copy. Representative Campbell, okay.
Mr. Speaker, I respectfully would like to pull amendment number 1 on the third reading for Senate File number 45.
You'll want to withdraw?
Withdraw.
Thank you, sir. Without objection from the body, amendment number 1, the third reading, House Senate File 45 has been withdrawn. Next amendment for our consideration, third reading amendment number 2 to Senate File 45, Representative Knapp. Please, sir.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. I would respectfully withdraw amendment number 2 to third reading, Senate File 45.
Without objection from the body, amendment number 2, third reading of Senate File 45 has been withdrawn. Next amendment for our considerations, Senate File 45, third reading amendment number 3, Representative Lawley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move third reading amendment number 3 to House or Senate File 45 and ask for your favorable consideration. So recall, this is a bill that has been worked on by all of the stakeholders, considering how local governments make decisions that affect each other and affect folks in the historic horse racing business. And so, again, a lot of work put into it over the interim, a lot of compromises along the way. There was just one little area they couldn't quite get an agreement on. And this is what you saw. One amendment, second amendment, and then this amendment is kind of that compromise that they finally kind of come to. And I don't know, a good compromise to me always has everyone a little bit unhappy and a little bit happy. And I think to say that this represents a kind of important compromise. And so I ask for your favorable consideration as it works out deals among those parties who have been a long time. It's been a long time coming to get some of these issues resolved for our local governments and for stakeholders. So I ask for your favorable consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Representatives for their first time on the amendment, third reading amendment number 3. Seeing none. Representative Lawley, another bite at the apple. You're good? Okay, she's waving us off. Members, you're voting on Senate File 45's third reading amendment number 3. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, no. Man, guys, that's kind of sad. Oh. Okay. Chairs in doubt. All those in favor, please stand. Yeah. Is everybody up? That was one of the slowest get ups I've ever seen in my life. You guys are still thinking about it as you're standing up. So if you're, I think, okay, there, are you all there? All right, we'll try to count. Please hold still, please. Okay, you may be seated. All those opposed? Less than 41. Okay, so. And you know, if you'd listened to that, I'd almost called it that they would have lost. And so you guys were, good thing we did that, or you guys could have ended up with something you maybe didn't want. All right, moving on. Senate File 45, having been read 3 separate times, the question is now, shall the bill pass? Chief Clerk will please call the roll.
Allemand, Andrew, Angelos, Banks, Bear, Brady, Bratton, Brown Gary, Brown Landon, Byron, Campbell Elisa, Campbell Kevin, Chestick, Clouston, Connolly, Davis, Erickson, excused, Filer, Fornstrom, Geringer, Guggenmoss, Haroldson, Harshman, Heiner, Heft, Jarvis, Johnson, Kelly, excused, Knapp, Larson Lloyd, Larson JT, Lawley, Lean, Locke, Lucas, McCann, Nicholas, Ottman, Pendergraft, Posey, Provenza, Riggins, Rodriguez Williams, Schmid, Sherwood, Singh, Smith, Storer, Strock, Stivar, Tarver, Thayer, Washat, Wasserberger, Webb, Weber, Wharf, Williams, Winter, Wiley, Yin. Mr. Speaker, are there any changes? Harshman, absent to aye. Brown, Landon, no. To aye. Further changes? Further changes. Closing vote. Vote closed. 57 aye, 3 no, 2 excused.
Senate File 45, having been received the affirmative vote of the majority of the members elected to the House, Senate File 45 has passed the House. Okay. Okay, we got one last. This is the one that's going to require a 2/3 vote, ladies and gentlemen. Senate File 68, reading clerk.
Senate File 68, sponsored by Water districts, funds for maintenance projects, and act relating to irrigation projects being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
Okay. Having been read 3 separate times, the question is, shall the bill pass? Chief Clerk will please call the roll.
Allemand, Andrew, Angelos, Banks, Bear, Brady, Bratton, Brown Gary, Brown Landon, Byron, Campbell Elisa, Campbell Kevin, Chestick, Clauston, Connolly, Davis, Erickson, excused, Filer, Fornstrom, Geringer, Guggenmoss, Haroldson, Harshman, Heiner, Heft, Jarvis, Johnson, Kelly, excused, Knapp, Larson Lloyd, Larson JT, Lawley, Lean, Locke, Lucas, McCann, Nicholas, Ottman, Pendergraft, Posey, Provenza, Riggins, Rodriguez-Williams, Schmid, Sherwood, Singh, Smith, Storer, Strock, Stivar, Tarver, Thayer, Washut, Wasserberger, Webb, Weber, Worf, Williams, Winter, Wiley, Yin. Mr. Speaker, are there any changes? Yin, no, to aye. Locke, aye. To no. Brown, Gary, aye. To no. Haroldson, no. To aye. Lucas, aye. To no. Further changes. Further changes. Closing vote. Vote closed. 53 aye, 6 no, 3 excused.
Senate File 68, having received the affirmative vote by a 2/3 majority of the members elected at the House, Senate File 68 has passed the House. Mr. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the House stand in recess until 2 p.m.
Committee announcements. Representative Washut, Chairman Washut.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your committee number 1 will meet Friday morning at 8 o'clock in our normal room, the Platte River Room. Here are 2 bills, Senate File 87, felony interference with a peace officer, and Senate File 111, Select Committee on Gaming.
Thank you, Chairman. Next, Chairman Byron.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Travel, Recreation, Wildlife, Culture Resources Committee will meet in about 10 minutes down in E005 to consider Senate File 25 engrossed, Senate File 26, and as time permits, Senate File 66, and Senate Joint Resolution 9.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your committee number 8, Transportation, Highways, and Military Affairs will meet in 10 minutes to hear 3 bills, potentially 4 if we can work them through there. Senate File 58, Senate File 95, Senate File 61, and Senate File 107.
Thank you, Chairman. Vice Chair Pendergraft, number 2.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your committee number 2, Appropriations, will meet in 20 minutes. Upstairs, room 301. We'll be looking at Senate File 101 engrossed, Second Amendment Protection Act amendments.
Thank you, Chairman. Any other members? Committee announcements? We're all good? All right. You have heard the motion of the, whoa, Chairman Knapp, please, sir. Number 7, Court.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Corporations number 7 committee will meet tomorrow, noon recess, to hear Senate File 113 engrossed and Senate File 117 engrossed.
Thank you, Chairman Knapp. Chairman Bear, number 2, Appropriations.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Joint Conference Committee for Senate File 1 and House Bill 1 will meet tomorrow at noon, and that is the General Government Appropriations Bill.
Thank you, Chairman. Where is it going to be held at?
This will be in room E301 and online, which is on the 3rd floor, JAC room.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. Any others, announcements before we go? All right, members, you have heard the motion of the motion of the good majority floor leader. We will recess until 2 p.m.